The mud. That's the first thing I remember. It was October 1944. The war was supposed to be almost over. Paris was free, the Allies were pushing into Germany, but here we were, stuck in this god-forsaken swamp. They called it the Scheldt estuary. To us, it was just hell on earth. My name is, well, it doesn't matter. I was just one of the thousands of guys in the Canadian First Army, told we had one last vital job to do: open up the port of Antwerp. It sounded simple enough on a map. Antwerp was the key. We'd captured it intact, a massive deep-water port that could supply our entire push into Germany. But there was a catch, a big one. The Germans still controlled the 60 miles of riverbanks leading to it. Without clearing the Scheldt, that port was useless. So, the 1st Canadian Army, with Brits, Poles, and others attached, was sent in. We were young, tired, but we thought we'd seen it all. We hadn't. We had no idea what we were about to walk into. The cold, the endless rain, the waterlogged fields. It was a landscape designed for defense, and the Germans, they were dug in deep. They called it the Forgotten Battle, but for those of us there, it's impossible to forget. The fighting was brutal, relentless. Every inch of ground was paid for in blood. The Germans had flooded the low-lying polders, turning the battlefield into a maze of dikes, canals, and treacherous mudflats. We weren't just fighting soldiers. We were fighting the land itself. Our tanks would get bogged down, useless. We had to move on foot, exposed on the narrow causeways, or use amphibious vehicles like the buffaloes to cross the flooded plains. They called one of these places the Breskin's Pocket. It was a fortress, concrete bunkers, machine gun nests, artillery zeroed in on every possible approach. The Germans fighting there were battle-hardened veterans. They weren't giving up. For weeks, it was a meat grinder. You'd push forward a few hundred yards during the day, and at night, they'd counterattack, trying to take it back. Sleep was a luxury. A dry pair of socks was a miracle. You'd be huddled in a slit trench, half filled with freezing water, listening to the shells whine overhead, just praying the next one didn't have your name on it. I remember one particular push across a causeway. It was barely wider than a country lane, with flooded fields on either side. We called it the slow channel crossing. There was no cover, none. The Germans had machine guns and mortars sighted on every foot of it. It was a suicide run, but we had to do it. The order came down, and you went. You'd see your buddies, guys you'd shared your last cigarette with, just get cut down. You couldn't stop to help them. You had to keep moving forward, firing into the darkness, hoping you'd make it to the other side. The courage I saw there, it was something else. Not the Hollywood kind of bravery. It was the quiet kind. The kind where you're terrified, every part of you is screaming to run, but you look at the guy next to you, and he's just as scared, and you both just keep going. That's what got us through. We were fighting for each other. Then there was Walcheren Island, the island fortress. It was the final piece of the puzzle, a heavily fortified island at the mouth of the Scheldt. The only way to take it was a three-pronged attack. The Canadians would attack across that deadly causeway from the east. The British commandos would land from the sea at Westkapelle and Flushing. Before the landings, the RAF had bombed the massive sea dikes, flooding the island to limit German movement. Imagine that. Intentionally flooding the land to give us a fighting chance. When the commandos landed, they were met with a wall of fire from coastal batteries that had somehow survived the bombing. The fighting in Flushing was house to house, brutal and personal. Every street, every building was a battle. We were fighting in people's living rooms, their gardens. It was a grim, dirty business. Looking back, the numbers are staggering. Over 13,000 Allied casualties, half of them Canadian, in just over a month. For what? For a port. It sounds so cold, so logistical. But that port, Antwerp, shortened the supply lines and fueled the final push that ended the war in Europe just 6 months later. What we did in the Scheldt, what my friends died for, it made that possible. We weren't heroes in shining armor. We were just ordinary guys, farm boys from Saskatchewan, factory workers from Hamilton, fishermen from Nova Scotia, thrown into the worst conditions imaginable. We were cold, wet, and scared. But we did our job. We opened the Scheldt. People talk about Normandy, about the Battle of the Bulge, and they should. But they should also remember the Scheldt. They should remember the boys who fought and died in the mud and the water, in the forgotten battle that helped win the war. They earned that much. They earned our remembrance. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the untold stories of history.